What's up, ministers? It's the Russian dude. Donald Trump is once again playing the role of the world's peacemaker, telling reporters with his trademark mix of confidence and vagueness that something is going to happen between Russia and Ukraine. He insists he has been watching, talking, monitoring and waiting for the right moment, while at the same time missiles pound Ukrainian cities, apartment blocks collapse under drone strikes, and funerals fill cemeteries faster than any peace table can be set. Vladimir Putin, on his part, offers what he calls an invitation to Volodymyr Zelenskyy to come to Moscow, of all places, the very city orchestrating the bombardment of Ukraine. Zelensky unsurprisingly rejects the idea, calling Putin a terrorist and saying that if there is going to be a meeting, it should happen in Kyiv. Everyone wants peace, at least 2 out of 3 parties, but nobody wants to talk. We guys are back to 2022 like the year never ended. Trump sells optimism, Putin sells dominance, and Zelensky clings to survival. And yet the world is supposed to believe that peace might be just one simple meeting away. But just scratch the surface and all it begins to look like a theater. Not diplomacy, not serious statecraft, just theater. Staged photo ops, carefully scripted statements, and the illusion that progress is somehow being made behind the scenes. Who knows how and who, but it's being made, just trust us. The reality is that the only thing progressing is the war itself, with more bodies, more destruction, and more false promises. So today, let's try to decipher the most recent statements by the world leaders, see if anything is different, and what potentially we might expect in the near future. Donald Trump has always tried on spectacle. His CBC news about Ukraine was no exception. Something is going to happen, he said with his familiar confidence, repeating it like it is a salesman hammering home a pitch. The deal he envisions is pretty simple, at least in his world. Get Putin and Zelensky in a room, keep them there locked until all they agree and they'll just declare victory. Well, that is the Trump's formula, at least. It is how he talks about business, how he talks about North Korea, how he talks about almost every diplomatic effort he touches. But global war is not a Manhattan real estate negotiation. This is not about overcharging for condos and then cutting the price slightly just to look generous, just so the buyers will be thankful for your generosity. This is about survival, about sovereignty, about lives lost every single day on fighting drugs on. Trump claims he has already ended 6 or 7 wars, according to him. He lists countries like Armenia, Azerbaijan, India, Pakistan, Kosovo, Egypt, Ethiopia. But in reality, these conflicts are either frozen, unresolved, or simply they were never even full-scale wars as he describes them. Yet in Trump's narrative, it does not matter whether peace truly exists. What matters is whether he can attach his name to it. That is the pattern. Declare peace, take credit, and then just move on. Whether those conflicts flare up again tomorrow is irrelevant, because the headlines has already been written. And if you cannot end war fast, well, just pass along solving the problem to another department, and that's pretty much it. The problem for Ukraine is that this method, this obsession with optics, risks pushing Kyiv into a dangerous position. If Trump wants a deal at all costs, then the temptation will be to pressure Ukraine into making concessions, territorial or political. That will weaken the country's very existence. Trump can call that peace, Putin will call that victory. But for Ukraine, it would be surrender. And there is deeper irony. Trump claims he hates wars, but says he just wants to save lives. And yet, he talks about diplomacy in the same tone he might use to discuss just some casino deals. The death toll in Ukraine is not a line item in the contract, it is an ongoing human catastrophe. To believe that all of this can be resolved with just one grand summit is to just simply misunderstand the nature of both Putin's ambitions and Ukraine's desperation. But unlike last several years, when Putin said that he will never talk to Zelensky because he is, according to him, the illegitimate president of Ukraine, now Putin at least openly invites him to Moscow to have a direct conversation. But how serious is he truly in his intentions? Let's talk about it in our next chapter. While Trump sells optimism, Putin sells inevitability. His message is clear. Russia will keep fighting until Ukraine accepts Moscow terms. Period. He says he is open to negotiations, but only if Zelensky comes to Moscow. A calculated move designed to humiliate the Ukrainian president. Just imagine it. The leader of a country under bombardment walking into the Kyiv, walking into the Kremlin like a child being punished. For Putin, that alone would be victory. At the same time, Putin delivers chilling warnings and doubles down on his efforts in Ukraine. In Vladivostok, for example, he told a hall full of officials and business elites that any Western troops entering Ukraine, even peacemakers, would be legitimate targets for destruction. The crowd then burst into applause, everyone is howling, cheering like the some kind of fraternity party. They were not horrified, they were ecstatic, because Putin would not have it any other way. That is how Russia's elite now react. They cheer threats of war with NATO as if it was some kind of sports event. The applause revealed something darker than Putin's words. It revealed a society conditioned to see violence not just as acceptable, but as worthy of celebration. And then there is the optics of strength. Putin parades across Beijing, shaking hands with Xi Jinping, nodding alongside North Korean officials, presenting himself not as an isolated pariah, but as a man with powerful friends. Russia might be battered economically, but the message from him is clear. Moscow still has partners, still has leverage, and still has the audience for its spectacle of defiance. What is more, Putin knows how to twist words into weapons. When he talks about light at the end of tunnel, he's not describing peace. He's describing victory, his own victory. In his vision, that light is Ukraine broken, absorbed, forced into submission, while Russia emerges as the architect of the new world order, with China and other allies at its side. That is not peace, it is conquest by just another name. And yet, he plays along with Trump's peace narrative because it buys him time, buys him cover, and buys him a veneer of legitimacy. In our next chapter, let's talk about Zelensky, his reaction to this invitation to Moscow, and his one and only logical response. For Zelensky, the stakes could not be higher. He rejects Putin's Moscow invitation outright, calling it unrealistic and the capital of a terrorist. He suggests Kyiv as an alternative, an equally impossible choice for Putin, and that is the point. Zelensky is trapped in an impossible game where every move risks being twisted against him. Accept Moscow and he loses credibility. Refuse, and Putin paints him as the obstacle to peace. That is pretty much exactly what has been happening for the last entire year. Meanwhile, Ukraine, country, suffers. In just 5 days, for example, Russia launched more than 1,300 drones, 50 missiles, hitting 14 regions. Civilians are trapped in basements, cities plunged into darkness, families buried under rubble. Zelensky calls this what it is, turning diplomacy into a farce, and he's right. Because what kind of negotiation is it when one side bombards the other, while simultaneously inviting its leader for a tea in Moscow? Zelensky knows he cannot rely solely on words, especially if they come from Putin's mouth. Exactly, if they come from Putin's mouth. He calls for more sanctions, more weapons, more restrictions on Russian oil and gas. He knows that Ukraine's only leverage is its ability to fight, to resist, and to hold out long enough that the world does not forget them. Long enough that the Russian economy itself starts devouring the country. And hopefully long enough that the people of Russia see this war for what it truly is. But Trump's optimism, Putin's manipulation, and Europe's weariness makes this harder every single day. Here is the cruel paradox. Zelensky must appear open to negotiation in order to keep allies on board, but he also cannot afford to compromise his country's sovereignty. His choice is to literally walk a razor-thin line where one misstep could cost him everything. For Ukraine, survival means rejecting Putin's terms, while convincing the rest of the world that this rejection is not stubbornness, it is a necessity. And so we come to the illusion. Trump repeats something is going to happen. Putin repeats light at the end of the tunnel. Zelensky repeats come to Kyiv. But what is really happening? More bombings, more threats, more posturing. Peace only exists in speeches, in headlines, and in photo ops. On the ground, the war does not stop for sound bites. These three men stand in different realities. Trump imagines peace as a handshake deal he can put his name on. Putin imagines peace as Ukraine's unconditional surrender, and Zelensky imagines peace as independence and liberation. None of these visions obviously align. They're not even in the same universe. That's why the light at the end of the tunnel line is so revealing and so accurate, because they are walking through different tunnels entirely. Trump's tunnel is made of cameras and headlines, Putin's tunnel is made of conquest and blood, and Zelensky's tunnel is made of resilience and rubble. And those tunnels are not converging, they are diverging. Meanwhile, the costs mount. Every day of waiting for Trump's something is just another Ukrainian child who loses a home, another Russian soldier who dies in trenches, and another city in crumbles. And yet, leaders continue to talk about peace as if it was some one simple negotiation away. The unfortunate truth is that peace is not near. What is near is more escalation, more destruction, and more of the same theater disguised as diplomacy. Trump wants to be the man history books call the peacemaker, as the one who saved billions and billions and billions. Putin wants to be remembered as the leader who bent the West to his will, who never surrendered, who claimed victory no matter the cost. And Zelensky, he just simply wants Ukraine to survive as a sovereign nation, to live beyond this war without betraying the sacrifices already made. Trump says peace is coming, Putin says victory is coming, and Zelensky says survival is the one and only option. But on the ground only one thing is truly coming: more war, until one side collapses or the world decides enough is enough. Until then, all the handshakes, invitations, and applause lines are just noise echoing over the screams of the battlefield. Trump promises something will happen, and yet something will. The only question is whether it will be peace or just another missile lighting up the Ukrainian night sky. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support our work and help us stay independent, there are links down below, for example, PayPal donations. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.